there, fantasy owners. LTC Fantasy here. Not sure if you're chiming in watching via YouTube or listening via podcast, but really do appreciate the watch or listen no matter how you're streaming the episode. Today's our Week 11 midweek waiver wire episode, so we'll take a look at some players that are on hot streaks or getting opportunity due to injuries, etc. That way to hopefully help you out, not only for this week, but future weeks as well. So basically, we'll get right into it. Goaltenders to look at. The first one I put Charlie Lindgren, but ignore him. Kemper just got cleared to play and should be in the lineup right away here. So Lindgren, that's really going to decrease his value, so just ignore him. Next one is Peter Kochetkov from Carolina there, owned in 60% of Yahoo leagues. He started 7 of the last 9 games, and he has 7 wins in there, 2 shutouts. He's really playing well. If you can get him on your roster, because Anderson's still on the IR, should definitely get some value out of him. Next one is Ukko-Pekka Laukkanen from Buffalo there, owned in 6% of Yahoo leagues. He started 6 of the last 9, and he's won 4 of those 6 games. So he is getting you some wins. The other numbers, kind of a little bit hit and miss, but he is getting you some wins, and with Comrie still out, should hopefully provide some goaltending depth for you. Last one, Spencer Martin over in Vancouver, owned in 25% of Yahoo leagues. He started 10 of the last 12, 5 wins there, so he's not quite winning, well, winning right around half his games. The other numbers are pretty ugly. He's more of a quantity over quality type play, but if you're in search of some goaltending depth, he might provide some value for you. Before we get into defensemen, do want to ask you to subscribe if you're watching via YouTube. Really trying to grow this channel, and hopefully you're getting some value out of these episodes. And now we'll jump right into some defensemen here. First one, Shayne Gostisbehere over in Arizona, owned in 55% of Yahoo leagues, playing top pairing, second power play unit, and he has 11 points the last 12 games. He's a +4, a plus player in the desert, so there's a little bit of added value, and 22 shots on goal. He's been really good, especially since Chychrun got back, and that pairing's been really, really working well for them. And with that, he should provide some nice depth for you. Another one going over to Minnesota. Look at Jared Spurgeon, owned in 58% of Yahoo leagues, playing top pairing, second power play unit. He's been pretty good. 7 points the last 9 games, 18 shots on goal, 11 hits, 18 blocks. Been pretty good of late, and as you can see, he kind of chips in every category there, so more of a well-rounded play there, and you should definitely get some value out of him if you can fit him on your roster. Next one over in Toronto is Rasmus Sandin, owned in 53% of Yahoo leagues, plays that second pairing top power play unit there, and he has 7 points the last 9 games with 16 shots on goal, 16 hits, 14 blocks. Is a bit streaky offensively, but he does chip in the other categories, and he is playing on that top power play unit while Riley is out, so that adds a little bit of value there, and you'll still get some in the hits and blocks department, even if he gets you a bagel, so it could be a decent depth piece. Next one, going over to the Rangers, look at Keandre Miller, owned in 27% of Yahoo leagues, playing second pairing, second power play unit, and he has 7 points the last 7 games there, with 21 shots on goal and 11 blocks. He's well-rounded, and the offense has been heating up of late, and with that, getting a little bit of opportunity on the second power play unit could provide some decent depth for you moving forward. Going over to Montreal, look at Jordan Harris, only owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the second pairing there, and he has 5 points the last 7 games with 9 hits and 8 blocks. He's been fairly good of late. He's a young D-man there, and with that comes a little bit of consistency issues, but he's been pretty good the last few weeks, and if he can hold that up in your deeper leagues, could provide some depth for you. Going over to Carolina, look at Brady Shea, owned in 23% of Yahoo leagues, plays second pairing, second power play unit there, and he's put up 7 points the last 7 games there, with 20 shots on goal and 7 blocks. He is a bit streaky, but really hot of late. Still chips in a little bit in other categories there. So in your deeper leagues where you can pickings are a little slimmer, he could be a fairly good depth piece for you. Going over to Philly, look at Travis Sanheim, owned in 6% of Yahoo leagues, plays second pairing, second power play unit there, and he has 7 points the last 10 games with 22 shots on goal and 12 blocks. Overall, numbers are pretty decent overall in most categories there. So for your deeper leagues, especially in Cats leagues, he will bring you some nice depth. Going back to Minnesota, look at Kalen Addison. He's owned in 14% of Yahoo leagues, plays third pairing, top power play unit there. And he's been pointless the last 4 games, but he put up 4 points the previous 4. So with that, he is streaky, as young defensemen usually are, but he does get you points in bunches there. And if you can weather that in a deeper league, you might be able to get some value out of him as a depth piece. Next one's over in San Jose. Look at Matt Benning, owned in 4% of Yahoo leagues, plays second pairing, second power play unit there, and he has 6 points the last 10 games with 21 hits, 29 blocks. He has really nice hit and block numbers there. His offense, he's over a half point per game over the last stretch. Really thin blue line in San Jose, so he's getting some opportunity on that second power play unit. And with that, he's chipping in a little more offense than we're used to seeing him chip in. And those hits and blocks are always going to be there for him. So it could be a decent depth piece. Going over to LA, look at Sean Dursey, owned in 52% of Yahoo leagues, plays second pairing, second power play unit there, and he only has 1 point the last 6 games, but he put up 9 points over the previous 6. So he gets a nice amount of blocks and is offensive minded, as you can tell, that 9 points in 6 game stretch. So with that, could be a fairly decent depth piece, especially when he is on a hot streak. He's still going to provide a little bit of value with blocks when he's a little cooled off a bit, but be a decent depth piece, especially in your mid to deep leagues there. Next one is Dmitry Orlov over in Washington, owned in 35% of Yahoo leagues, playing second pairing there, and he has 4 points the last 5 games, 16 shots on goal, 13 hits and 11 blocks in those 5 games. Realistically, he's been a fantasy beast since he's come back from injury there. So basically in most formats, he'd be a pretty nice depth piece, especially the way he's playing of late. Next one over in Tampa Bay is Eric Chernak, owned in 11% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that second pairing. And he has 5 points over the last 8 games, so a little over a half point per game. 33 hits in those 8 games, so definitely throws that big body around. 16 blocks. His value really is in the hits and blocks department there, but he does chip in offensively a little bit, so especially in your deeper Cats leagues, he would provide some nice depth for you. Finishing off with some forwards, we'll start over in Buffalo. Look at Dylan Cousins, listed as a center, owned in 61% of Yahoo leagues, plays second line, top power play unit there, and he has 16 points the last 11 games, 31 shots on goal. So really hot right now. Also wins a nice amount of face-offs. So if face-off wins are counted in your league, that would just be some added value. The kid is playing well, and realistically, if you can find him, I would add him as a depth piece, especially the way he's rolling right now. Next one's Brian Rust over in Pittsburgh, listed as a right winger, owned in 61% of Yahoo leagues, playing second line, second power play unit there, and he has 9 points the last 6 games with 13 shots on goal and 9 blocks. For Rust, it has been a down year, but he's been really good the last 3 weeks here. So with that, maybe it's a sign of him turning it around. Should be, especially given his track record. So with that, give him the benefit of the doubt. Should be a fairly decent depth piece going forward. Next one's over in Boston. Look at Taylor Hall, listed as a left winger, owned in 62% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that third line, second power play unit there, and he has 14 points the last 10 games with 37 shots on goal. He has been extremely good of late, especially offensively. So if he is available in your league, he should be a fairly good depth piece. Moving over to Calgary, look at Michael Backlund, listed as a center, owned in 31% of Yahoo leagues, playing third line, second power play unit there, and he has 8 points the last 9 games with 25 shots on goal. So he's been on a nice run, does get a decent amount of face-off wins there, chips in an okay amount of blocks. So in certain formats, he could be a decent depth piece. Next one is Thomas Hertl over in San Jose. Listed as a center, owned in 65% of Yahoo leagues, playing top line, top power play unit there. He's been good, 14 points the last 12 games. He is in the midst of a 2-game suspension, so he won't add any value for you till after the Christmas break. But with that, he's pretty good in all categories, so should be a pretty nice depth piece. Going over to Toronto, look at Michael Bunting. Listed as a left winger, owned in 61% of Yahoo leagues, playing top line, second power play unit there, and he has 12 points the last 11 games, 19 shots on goal, 12 hits, 6 blocks. He's been hot of late and been pretty decent in all your other categories there. So with that, in most formats, you should be able to get some decent value out of him. Next one is Adam Lowry over in Winnipeg, listed as a center, owned in 12% of Yahoo leagues, centering that third line on the second power play unit there, and he has 7 points the last 9 games with 17 shots on goal, 14 hits, and 6 blocks. He's decent in all around categories of late, can be a little bit on and off offensively there, so I would leave him for more your deeper leagues, but could be a decent depth piece in those deeper leagues. Going over to Columbus, look at Jack Roslovich, listed as a center, owned in 6% of Yahoo leagues, centering that second line on the top power play unit there, and he has 9 points the last 10 games, 20 shots on goal, 7 blocks. Roslovich, he can be a bit streaky, but he's been pretty good of late. Jenner out for a little bit there, might get some added opportunities, should be able to help you out as a decent depth piece, especially in your deeper leagues. Going back to Calgary, look at Adam Ruzicka. Listed as center left winger, owned in 11% of Yahoo leagues. On that third line, second power play unit there. And he has 8 points the last 10 games with 16 shots on goal. He has cooled off a little bit of late, but it's kind of found gold the way he's produced offensively this year. Nobody really expected him to be putting up the points he has so far. So especially in your deeper leagues, might be a decent depth piece for you moving forward. Another one in Calgary is Dylan Dubé, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 6% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the top line, second power play unit. He's put up 6 points the last 5 games, so over a point per game. 9 shots on goal and 8 hits. He's been pretty good for a little while now, and he's getting rewarded. Bumped up to that top line there. And could be a pretty nice depth piece depending on the format and how deep your league is. Should provide some decent depth for you. Next one is Travis Konechny over in Philadelphia, listed as a right winger, owned in 60% of Yahoo leagues, playing top line, top power play unit there. 7 points the last 9 games, 30 shots on goal, 9 blocks, and 9 hits. Been tooting his horn pretty much every week that he has been healthy. He's been fairly consistent all year, and with that, pretty much in any format, you should get some decent depth value out of him. Next one is Brandon Hagel over in Tampa Bay, listed as left winger, right winger, only owned in 25% of Yahoo leagues, playing top line, top power play unit there. He currently has 9 points in a 5-game point streak, so super hot right now. 11 shots on goal, 4 blocks. He's been on a tear, and he plays on that top line in Tampa, top power play unit. Basically, if he is available, I'd definitely snag him up. Next one is Robert Thomas over in St. Louis, listed as a center, owned in 56% of Yahoo leagues, centering that third line, top power play unit there, and he has 11 points the last 10 games played. He is a point per game player, and with that, you know you're going to get value out of him as a depth piece because it's a guy that's consistently, especially from last year to this year, been around or over a point per game, so should definitely get some value out of him. Next one is Charlie Coyle over in Boston, listed as a center, owned in 5% of Yahoo leagues, playing that third line, second power play unit there, and he has 6 points the last 7 games with 12 shots on goal. Him and Hall have been on a roll of late. Hall obviously a little bit higher end, but Coyle in your deeper leagues, the way he's been, and Hall is one of his line mates, should be a decent depth piece. Next one is Anthony Mantha over in Washington, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 10% of Yahoo leagues, playing second line, second power play unit. He's put up 7 points the last 7 games with 18 shots on goal. So been a point per game over the last couple of weeks here. Is in the top 6. Should hopefully stay there for a little while. And with that, in your deeper leagues especially, could be a decent depth piece moving forward. Another one in Washington's Connor Sherry, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 6% of Yahoo leagues, on that top line, second power play unit there, and he has 8 points the last 10 games played with 25 shots on goal. He's playing on the top line in Washington, been OV's other wingman for a while there, and okay numbers, decent offensive numbers, should be a decent depth piece, especially in your deeper leagues. Next one is Mason Marchment over in Dallas, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 30% of Yahoo leagues, playing second line, second power play unit there, and he has 4 points the last 6 games, 21 shots on goal, 13 hits, and 3 blocks. He is a little streaky, but decent in most categories there. So even if he does toss you a bagel in points department, should get you some value in hits, blocks, shots on goal, plus, minus, etc. So with that, especially in your deeper Cats leagues, should be an okay depth piece for you. Going back to Washington, look at Dylan Strome, listed as center right winger, owned in 27% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the top line, top power play unit there, and he has 8 points the last 12 games, 22 shots on goal, and 6 blocks. Been centering OV's line pretty much most of the year. Once in a while, Kuznetsov sneaks in there, but for that, just centering OV's line and centering that top power play with OV on there, you should be able to get some decent depth value out of him. Going back to Tampa, look at Anthony Cirelli, listed as center left winger, owned in 25% of Yahoo leagues, centering that third line there, and he's been good. 7 points the last 7 games, plus 5, 22 shots on goal, and 5 blocks. He's been really good since coming back from injury there. He's contributing in most Cats, so especially in your Cats leagues, he'll provide value. In your deeper scoring leagues, you might also get some decent depth value out of him. Going over to San Jose, look at Nick Bonino, listed as center left winger, owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues, on that second line, second power play unit there. He's put up 5 points the last 6 games. Pretty good for the old vet. 11 shots on goal and 8 blocks. He gets a ton of blocks for a forward. Obviously, as I just mentioned, he gets a ton of blocks for a forward. And he is in the top 6 right now. He's chipping in offensively, getting that added opportunity. So especially in your deep Cats leagues, could provide some decent value for you. Going over to Florida, look at Carter Verhaeghe, listed as a left winger, owned in 62% of Yahoo leagues, playing top line, second power play unit there. And he has 9 points the last 9 games, so point per game player. 30 shots on goal, gets you a ton of shots there. He's been pretty good, even with Barkov in and out of the lineup with the flu there, now a lower body injury, etc. So he should be a fairly decent depth piece because he's been showing that he can produce even with Barkov out of the lineup. Next one's Riley Smith over in Vegas, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 49% of Yahoo leagues, playing second line, second power play unit there, and he has 5 goals and 2 assists for 7 points in the midst of a 4-game point streak, so over a goal per game. Obviously not going to keep that up, but been really good of late. 16 shots on goal in those 4 games there, so he's been really hot of late and overall fairly consistent, so you should be able to use him as a fairly decent depth piece. Next one's Andrew Mangiapane in Calgary there. Listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 41% of Yahoo leagues. On the second line, second power play unit there. And he has 3 points the last 5 games, 9 shots on goal and 3 blocks. Obviously has been a down year for him. He's still just over a half point per game over the last 5 there. But he does have talent. You don't just score 35 and fall off the face of the earth. So if he is available in your deeper, I would stress deeper leagues, that's where I might take a chance on him as a depth piece. Last one is Andrei Kuzmenko over in Vancouver, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 44% of Yahoo leagues, playing second line, top power play unit. And he has 11 points in the last 12 games, gets an okay amount of shots on goal there. He gets points in bunches. He has a lot of multi-point games this year. So if you kind of ride that wave, you should be able to get some really good offensive production overall out of him. Be a fairly decent depth piece. That's it for today's episode. We won't be having a weekend ads episode this week with Christmas break, but we'll be out in a bit with our Week 12 strategy episode. If you did like it, remember to hit like, hit subscribe. Remember that notification bell if you're watching via YouTube. If you're listening via podcast, remember to hit that heart, hit follow, hit subscribe, depending what platform you're watching it on. And we'll talk to you soon, and Merry Christmas, fantasy owners.